What are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz
Who's us?
us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome to Closing Gap Podcast, The Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, blessed and highly favored.
Hey, man, that's always great to hear you are tuned in to another righteous and holy episode. And today's episode is going to be entitled Advantages of Adversity. Advantages of Adversity. You know, Wilbert, right now we're going through, in this month, we're still in the government shutdown, and oftentimes we don't like to specifically deal with what's currently in the news as much on our show, but I think it's important for us to address the government shutdown and the adversity that we're facing, because this is not something new. All right. So, you know, historically we've been through other government shutdowns, and each one has its own nuance of how we need to deal with it. And so I think it's very important that we address this situation today, because we have many of our listeners that work for the government and they have, you know, adverse effects as a result of what is going on. So I ask you this question first and foremost. Have you received many phone calls from any of your clients thus far with dealing with the shutdown right now?
Well, absolutely. Of course, and anytime there's uncertainty, you know, questions arise. And, you know, I'm thankful for the calls, because it tells me you're concerned, and it tells me you're putting, you know, your thoughts and mindset in the right place, and you're seeking help and seeking guidance. And anytime we go through anything in life, I think the best thing we can do is just stop, you know, be patient, speak to God first and foremost, and then let God lead us and direct us to the person we need to speak to next. Yeah. So I'm thankful that for those phone calls that, you know, I've been receiving from people saying, look, Mr. Hamilton, you know, what should I do? You know, how should I operate? How should I handle this government shutdown? And, you know, I'm thankful that I can sit back and tell them, say, remember that plan we put together? When you originally came to see me? Remember we talked about this beginning of the year, about writing that plan down and making it plain? I said, well, we've already addressed the shutdown, you know, before the shutdown happened. Yeah. You know, remember we planned for the worst and then hope for the best. But the biggest thing is we planned, and we have a roadmap and a guide to help us in times of chaos, in times of uncertainty. And that's the best thing that we can do is, you know, when adversity hits, you know, follow the game plan. It's kind of like everybody has, you have to rehearse those fire drills. You know, when you go to school, you know, we used to have to practice the tornado drills. You had to practice the fire drills. Why? Because if a fire breaks out, before a tornado happens, we got to know what to do, when to do, and exactly how to do it. We can't be trying to figure out what to do when things happen. Yeah. So making sure that we have a plan of action and we activate that plan and continue on is the most valuable thing that I'm thankful for with those clients, with the people that I work with, and helping them to understand that, you know, we can stay true to the course. We don't have to deviate from anything. We don't have to change anything because we did good planning. We planted good seed in good ground. So for those people of you that haven't put together a plan, who haven't sought help, it's not too late. Yeah. As long as you got breath in your body, we got opportunity to make corrections to any mistake that's happened. You know, as long as you got breath in your body, you can still come to the Lord and say, Lord, I'm sorry. I apologize. I repent. You know, please wash me clean and make me a new creature. So, you know, we're thankful to have that. And it tells me, as long as I got breath in the body, God can turn the situation around. That's right. And a lot of times the situation is not as bad as we make it seem. It's just we don't understand and have a pathway forward because we're not talking to the right people. Yeah. We're not talking to him, and we don't hear him talking back to us because we operate in chaos. All the chaos and concern that's going on in the world. We're hearing all the different things of how long the shutdown may go. You know, what may happen when we do, you know, come back to work. You know, how long will we be furloughed? All these different things that are going on. How is this going to affect the stock market? So how is my TSP of my 401k being affected, you know, by this government shutdown? And helping tell people, say, look, the stock market is up today, even though the governor shut down. So the market is still running. Your TSP and your 401k can still be productive and making money, taking advantage of everything that's going on around you. So don't let one thing that's not going your way affect everything else that could be going your way. So that's why it's important to make sure we have a plan and we can walk it out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because as you said, chaos is around us, and that's why we entitled the show today, The Advantages of Adversity. How can we take advantage of the situation that we're in? What is God trying to tell us in these situations? And the only way we can know what God is trying to tell us in these situations is if, like you said, if we're listening to God. And oftentimes the adversity that is around us has clouded our view. It has clogged our ears. And so we don't hear the Lord in this moment. It's much like a football team that's playing an away game. You know, the home team has the home crowd.
Yes.
And the home crowd is going to be very noisy to disrupt the success of the visiting team.
Yes.
And right now we're kind of like visitors on the team. We are this is not our home. This is not what we desire, this type of adverse situation. But how can we drown out the noise? Having a plan allows us to go to a silent count. And when you had a plan and the quarterback goes to the silent count, then the quarterback is able to just throw some signals to the players. And because the players know the plays, which is like the people that call you understand the play that has already been called.
Yes.
Then once they come to you as their financial quarterback, then you tell them that, hey, we already have everything in place. You give them that reassurance.
Yes.
That we're still able to be able to run a successful plan.
Absolutely.
Although the defense is set up to stop us and everything around us is noisy and trying to disrupt us, then we'll still be able to do what we need to do. And which brings to light the question, or the central faith thought that we need to have is, what if the chaos that we see is actually a catalyst for greater clarity?
Yes.
You know, what if what we're going through is just a moment of testing our faith to see if we actually have faith? Because sometimes you have faith, but you can have something but not use it. And so it's in these moments that now we have to utilize the faith that we say we have in God, because that's only in challenge that we're actually able to test whether or not we're successful.
Yes.
Right? Everybody can run the plays in practice and look good in practice, or at home in the mirror, you know, or in the shower, you practice your singing, you know, and everything looks good. But when you have to get in front of the crowd,
yes,
and sing the song, when you have to get in the game, when your number is called, how are you going to react in the testing and the trial and the situation there? Are you going to be able to be successful, or are you going to fold and not be able to follow through on the plan?
Well, you know, like Mike Tyson said one time, he said, everybody got a plan in that boxing ring until they get hit in the mouth. And then all of a sudden, plans change. So we got to understand that things are going to happen in life, and it's not a good thing nor a bad thing. But I look at it as a great thing, because I've learned to understand and take my challenges as opportunities. But that is through the testing of my faith as well. I didn't have that mindset overnight. I had to go through some things. And as you go through some things, you tend to look at things a little bit differently. Your vantage point starts to change, and it starts to shift, and you start to see things different than you did when you were younger. You know, when you saw opposition when you were young, you know, you saw it as challenge, you saw it as disruption. Well, now when you see challenges after you've been through some things, you see it as opportunity. It's opportunity to grow. It's opportunity to get better. It's opportunity to push myself to another level. It's opportunity to test my faith and to show God, I am who I say I am, to say, well, you are who you said you are. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to say thank you anyhow. Rain or shine, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to be grateful for all that you've done for me, regardless of what the situation, the circumstance looks like right now. And that is the true testing of your faith. And God is going to test your faith. He's going to take you through some things, and you're going to look at him like, well, how is this going to work out? And I don't know what's going to happen next. But guess what? It's not for you to worry about how it's going to work out. It's not even for you to work out. It's for you to trust that he is going to work it out.
Work it out.
And it's for you to just keep working. See, a lot of times I think we get caught up in, we want to do the work that makes us successful. We want to be the reason that the season changed. We want to be the reason why we make the money. We want to be the reason why our kids do the right thing and make the right decision. Well, all we are is the vessel that God is using to implement things into our kids.
Yeah.
And we got to trust him that he's going to push them in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, we can't make them do anything. You know, used to be a time where I say, well, your mom and dad I can make you do whatever I want. I'm like, well, up to a certain point. At certain points in times, you realize that, guess what? Mom and daddy can't save you.
Yeah.
They can't make you do the right things at all times. But I do have a voice in my ear because that child has been trained up. And when he is old, he won't depart from it. Why he's not departing from it? Because he got a voice in his head. He can hear God. And that's God speaking to him, telling him which way to go and which way not to go. So we just got to trust God in a lot of ways and continue to hold steadfast and be unmovable in ways that we sometimes struggle. You know, we struggle when it comes to, you know, allowing God to be God.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, obviously, we want to play God because we want to control the outcome, the situation, the circumstance. And we got to understand that, guess what? It's not for you to control because guess what? If you allow him to control it, your results will be better. You know, I've done some things on my own and gotten good results. But what would the results be if I let God do it?
Right.
I'm giving up good results for now great results. And which one do we want? We want the great results. But a lot of times we get so caught up in wanting to be right and not understand that not right, we really wrong. Because God is the one who's really right. And we're not trusting him fully. We want to take 75% of what he tells us, and then we want to sprinkle out 25% on top to make sure it goes the way we want it to go. Because we don't understand why God pushes us in certain directions at certain times. We don't understand what he's trying to pull out of us and push us to because it's uncomfortable. You know, we get, you know, very comfortable and stuck in our ways. And we don't like discomfort. We don't like, you know, our routine to be changed and switched up. We want to have consistency. And that's what the stock market loves having. That's what the economy loves. We like a systematic and consistent approach to how things can be done because it's measurable. See, when I know what's going to happen, I can measure it and I can gauge when I'm going to get to a certain destination. But when things start to happen and I no longer control all the variables, I no longer control when I arrive at that destination. And that's how life works. That's how God works. God ain't going to tell us, I'm going to pull you out that storm 2 weeks from now. But he has told you, he will tell you, I'm going to pull you out that storm. He's already promised you he's going to pull you out the storm. We know it's not going to rain every day forever. We know that he's already told us the sun is going to shine again. Now, when it's going to shine again, that's up to him. But we got to trust him and allow him to pull us out of that storm and just be faithful and prayerful and continue believing that he will. And this time when he pulls you out the storm, what you're going to have before you is going to be so much better than you trying to pull yourself out that storm right now.
Right. So when we get in these storms are something like the adversity that we're talking about, tribulations that we're talking about. And oftentimes, and especially now, this storm was not caused by us.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times the storms that we go through, yes, some we do cause ourselves, but many storms that you face are not a result of any action that you've taken or action that you did not take. And that's why we're coming to you today and talking about how to take advantage of the adversity, how to navigate the chaos that you're going through to have greater clarity. And our desire for you today is that you put your clarity on God, because as you watch the news, all of this chaos will continue to trouble your mind, trouble your spirit, and can become stressful to you. And we don't want you to be stressed about any of these things, but we want you to center yourself in God. And with that in mind, Romans 5 talks about that. The writer of Romans, he begins in chapter 5 talking about being justified by his faith, having peace with God through Jesus Christ. But then specifically in verse 3, he talks about having glory in tribulation, because tribulation works patience.
Yes.
So as we go through these adverse situations, what it's teaching us is to be more patient. And when we're trying to live for God, like you said, what you said earlier, that you'll go through a storm. God has promised to be with you in the storm and will bring you out of the storm, but will not necessarily tell you when you're going to come out of the storm. And so this is the same thing that the writer of Romans is talking about by saying, we glory in tribulation, and the tribulation work is patient. Because when we're in the storm, knowing that God is with us in the midst of the storm helps us glory in the storm. Because I know that I have the one that holds my future, the one that wakes me up every morning, the one that cares for me and loves me unconditionally is with me in the storm. So I'm not concerned about the storm. I'm not concerned about the adversity as much because God is with me. But then also in that, now I become more patient as a result of that, because of God being with me. And I'm not in a rush to get through the storm per se, because I know that the storm is going to produce some clarity for me. The storm is going to produce a greater faith and trust in God for me. And so now, because God is with me, and because I know that this is going to help me become more patient, to be able to wait on God to do what God desires to do, then now I just take comfort and glory in it. And so that's the advantage of the adversity that we're facing now. Is number one, is we want you to realize that God is with you in the midst of this shutdown. God is with you in the midst of whatever adverse situation you're facing in your life, whether it may be health or financially, spiritually, or whatever the case may be. If you put your faith in God and trust in Him, then know that God is there with you and God will bring you out in due time. But also, sometimes we don't get out of the storms many times at the time that we want to, because we don't learn the lessons that God is trying to teach us in the midst of the adversity. We don't receive the clarity in the chaos that God is trying to show us in the midst of that situation. And so sometimes we have to go through it a little while longer than we need to, or than what God had planned for us to do, because we're not taking the time to learn the lesson that we need to learn in the midst of the situation.
Yeah, well, now that's I think that's one of the most important things I think people can take away from you know what we're saying right now is people are always asking, why me? Why me? Why do I keep dealing with this? Why do I keep dealing with that? I said, because you ain't passed the test yet. You know, one thing I know for sure about God, because I've experienced this myself, you ain't gonna get a new test until you pass the old test. You're gonna get the same test over and over and over again. I don't care what your issue is. I don't care if it's addiction. I don't care if it's gambling. I don't care if it's drugs or drinking or promiscuity or whatever your issue may be. You're going to have to deal with that issue. And that issue alone is going to continue to rear its ugly head until you conquer that issue. And we don't want to face the music on a lot of our issues. But if you can conquer that one issue, then God will open up a door and a window and pour you out a blessing you won't have room enough to receive, because this is the great thing about God. He knows how many storms we can handle at once. So he's already told you he's not going to put more on you than you can bear. But guess what the trick is? You ain't supposed to be dependent on just you know it. You're supposed to be dependent on him. Because if you're dependent on him, you can handle whatever life puts on you. You can handle whatever he puts on you, because he's trying to get you to understand it's not for you to have to bear this alone. The catch is for you to put it on him, because he can carry it all. But we so busy trying to carry it on our own and trying to overcome this thing on our own, and we continue to fail. Well, he's already told us, ain't no man strong enough to resist temptation. But he said, I will always give you a way out to flee temptation. And we'll be right back in a minute.
Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And once again, today's episode is called The Advantages of Adversity. Number one, Wilbur, we've been talking already about how the chaos is actually a catalyst so that we can get greater clarity in the midst of the situation. And the fact that we need to glory in the tribulation because God is there with us. And in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the adversity, in the midst of this government shutdown, understand that God has a plan and God is working God's plan, irregardless to what Wall Street and Washington is doing. But what we're striving to do here at Closing the Gap Podcast, and this show in particular, is to unpack this shutdown and what it really means for us, not for Wall Street, not for Washington, but for us, we the people. How do we navigate this? And first, we have to navigate it with keeping our faith steadfast and immovable in God. The psalmist in Psalm 62 talks about how his soul truly waits on the Lord because he realizes that the Lord is his salvation, that the Lord is his rock and his salvation. The Lord is his defense. And he says, I will not be greatly moved, meaning that no matter what comes, what adversity comes up against him, because he trusts in God, he's not going to move from that. And we want all of our listeners to stand steadfast in that as well. No matter how many government shutdowns we go through or how it may adversely affect you and your finances, stick to the plan that you've laid out. Continue to pray and trust in God and continue to seek wise counsel to lead and guide you in the decisions that you make. Because the wise counsel is what you need, first and foremost, in faith. Because you need your faith foundationally in God so that you can know how to navigate things. And your faith in God is what's going to allow the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost of God, to give you the greater clarity to be able to discern who it is that you need to listen to and where you need to seek your counsel and seek your advice. And that's what's going to lead you to the right church. That's what's going to lead you to the whatever assistance you need. But for us, we like to talk about faith and finances. So we want you to be led to the right place to structure your faith and strengthen your faith. But then also you need to find the right wealth advising company to talk to in the midst of situations like this, to be able to vet and understand who it is that you're talking to and what your needs are, and them to be able to lead and guide you in the right direction. And Wilbert is the man that we're going to recommend because, hey, this is the show, Closing the Gap Podcast, and we're Hamilton Wealth Advisors, right? So
Absolutely.
we're not going to recommend anybody else, but we want you to have a conversation with him, because Wilbert has had many conversations with many different people and allows them to make the decision on their own to whether or not they want to utilize him for their wealth management or not. But also some, they listen to him and then they go and utilize the information somewhere else, even there too, Wilbert. And I'm sure you have some stories along.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That talk to that end as well.
Well, absolutely. It's all about planning. For me, I tell clients, all the time when they come to my door, I say, look, even if I'm not managing all of your money, I need to know what all of your money is doing so I can provide advice. I can provide structure. I can provide clarity. I can give you more direction on how to handle the things that are not with me. But also it gives me clarity on how I need to handle the things that you do have with me. So, I had a client call me this morning, on my way, to the office. And we had not spoken a couple months but we have a plan. And we've been working together for the greater part of probably over a decade now. And we had the foundation laid correctly from everything from his insurance to his retirement plan and the income plan. And we've been structuring these things for years and years. But he does real estate and hands in a lot of different areas. So he makes some good money, here and there. And, he would, every now and then he would sell a house and he would come into a lump sum. And, he started the process of buying stocks. He started that process probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And I would always give him insight. I would give him guidance. I would give him, tactical advice on how to handle things and what to look at. And, he called me. He said, Mr. Hamilton, we ain't talked to me, but I got to ask you a question. He said, how do you feel about what's going on right now in the economy? I said, well, remember what I told you? I said, the most money is always made in times of chaos. And he said, man, I'm glad you said that. He said, because I took your advice. He said, I've been buying stocks, and, I put about $50,000 in the market back in January. And he said, right now, we said, man, I got over $250,000 in that account right now. He said, man, I've done so well in the account based on the advice that you've given me and things that nuggets I've been stealing from you over the years, that I have the actual company that I'm investing the money with. I have their owners calling me saying, how have you done this? Because my returns have beat some of their investment fund managers because he's done so well in his portfolio. And, those are the things that I like. Yeah. I love to hear that because it tells me I've been able to make an impact. Now, that money's not invested with me. I didn't make a dime off of, him getting that return on his investment. But I'm happy to know that the information is being taken and being utilized to be of benefit and value. So now I know him and his wife are going to be better because of that. I know him and his son and his daughter are going to be better because of that. I know his retirement is going to be more secure because of that, because he's able to take the information and go utilize it and now implement it in a positive way. So a lot of times I think a lot of people get caught up in feeling like they have to be the reason why something happens. Well, guess what? In this situation, I may not have been the direct reason. I didn't put the money in that account. I didn't pick all of the investments that he invested in, but I did provide the roadmap. I did provide the guidance. I did provide the leeway because we had the foundational part set here to allow him to go and invest. Because remember, I always tell people, I said, we got retirement and we got investment. Retirement is what we need to maintain our standard of living for the rest of our life. Investment is what we got left over after I've secured my retirement. So because me and him and myself, I built his retirement plan, and I was able to sustain him and put him in a position where he doesn't have to worry about retirement anymore because we've handled that on my side. On the investment side of things, he can go and play. He invests in crypto. He's done well in that. He invested in his own individual stocks on that side. So he's able to play the game on that side with his investment dollars. And the nuggets that we've been able to share, he called me and he picked my brain on, what do you think is going on in the market? When do you think it's going to turn around? When do you think we're going to have a dip? He would call me just periodically, just picking with your brain, gathering information, and I would provide it. Provide information because I'm an open book. But I'm happy to hear it and be able to take the information, digest it, and go back and apply it in a fashion that's beneficial for him. But one thing that people need to understand is that before he did that, he had a plan first. This was his investment money, not his retirement money. So we got for sure money over here. Right. He started gambling with the I don't know money over there. So we had a great understanding of how to do things. And he was able to go and take the information, take the knowledge. But the biggest thing that he ever did was pick up the phone and call. Yeah. He's not able to make those decisions and put himself in that position if he never makes the call. He doesn't have the comfort to invest in some of those things if he didn't have a plan. He was able to take some calculated risk based off knowing I have a secure retirement plan over here with Mr. Hamilton. So I'm able to go out and gamble and take my calculated risk on this side with my investments. So this is why we encourage people to seek knowledge, seek information. But the first thing you got to do is trust God. Yeah. See, he had a relationship with God when he walked in my office. God told him to trust me. And we were able to build a plan and build a rapport. And that allowed him to grow and allow himself to be educated. So because he was able to be educated by me and give him knowledge and give him access to resources and certain things, now he was able to take that education and go implement it. Right. And now the implementation is what leads to the results. The problem is with a lot of us, we don't want to humble ourselves. No, first and foremost, seek God first. Then seek that wise counsel so we can be educated. So now we can properly implement so we can see the results. You're not going to get the results that you want if you don't have the proper education that leads to the proper implementation. But we can't have neither one if we don't have the come to Jesus mean first. Well, we gain some trust. And we always go back to that trust word all the time. I'm always saying that is the one word in our community that we can never have too much of and that we have the least of, which is why we're in the predicament we are. We're being affected by the government shutdown financially more than anybody else. Why? more black women have been laid off than any other sector. Of course, black men come right behind that. So we've been hurt more by the shutdowns and the layoffs and the furloughs than any other group. But then on the flip side, if you looked at the number of African Americans actually investing in the stock market, participating in retirement plans, we're also the lowest group there. So we're losing money on one end, but we're not making it back up on the other. And that's where we get the double portion of hurt. That's where we continue to fall down and that wealth gap gets bigger and bigger because we're not making it back up. See, just because you furloughed don't mean your 401k stop going up or down. Your money can still be making money for you. Right. Now, you may not be putting no money into it right now, but whatever's in there, we need to be maximizing and taking advantage of what's going on in the economy. The market is up double digits for the year. It's crazy and chaotic as things have been. We always say, and I always go back and tell people, always remember, the most money is made in times of confusion. So you have to be prepared and be aware. We talked about this at the top of the year when we saw the changeover coming, when there were the talks of the tariffs and the shutdowns and talks of people getting laid off and federal agencies getting shut down, money being pulled due to Doge and all these different things. We said what we need to do is evaluate the situation first, create a plan second, implement a plan third, and watch that plan be executed fourthly. We have failed in a lot of those areas because everything that we thought was going to happen has happened. But the thing that we needed to do to offset what was happening, we haven't done enough of, which is investing. So if I'm losing $1 over here, but I can invest and make $1 back over there, I still stay in my status quo. But if I'm losing $1 here and I'm not investing $1 over there, that means I'm just losing and falling further and further down the totem pole. And we get to a point where we wonder why we can't get anything done for the black community. Why can't anything be done politically for the African American community? Why can't we get a bill passed for us? Why are these, different groups popping up, attacking us? Why are we always thrown into the fray? And it seems like we're the ones being targeted for a lot of different things. Well, guess what? When you don't have dollars behind your words, that's what happens. It sounds like a bunch of empty rhetoric. And there's only one thing that the United States of America responds to, and that's money.
Yeah.
And if you ain't got no money, then guess what? Your response doesn't matter. Other groups understand that. We have to do a better job of understanding what moves the needle. What moves the needle is not going to be us hollering and screaming. What moves the needle is being able to write your name on a check and give it to a bank and that thing being able to be cashed. That's the only thing that matters here in the United States of America. So we have to do a better job of evaluating the situation and taking advantage of it. We hear about all the different things. We just heard about Barron Trump putting how many millions of dollars into Bitcoin right before the announcement came from his father. In 48 hours, his $30 million investment turned into $180 million return. Now, is that a coincidence? I'm going to let you be the judge. But one thing for sure, you got to be in the game to win the game. If we're not in the game, we can't win the game. So if all these market swings are going on, and there's all this so-called insider trader going on, all these different things going on financially, all these conversations happening. We're hearing all the talk about NVIDIA, AMD, all the tariffs and how they're affecting companies. Well, that means somebody making money, right? As long as there's money being made, that means there's a stock price going up somewhere. Are we participating in any of the growth that is happening with any of these companies? Because guess what? The whole goal of the tariffs was not to hurt the companies. The goal was to make the companies more profitable. Well, if the companies are more profitable, what's going to happen to the overall stock price of a more profitable company? It's going to go up. Why are we not participating in that growth? So we so caught up in what we ain't got, we don't often take advantage of what we do have. So we may not have the resource to go dump a whole lot of money in the market and invest. But guess what? The money that you do have in it, participating in your own 401k that you got on your job, we got to do a better job of maximizing what we do have, because God has already told us, you be faithful over few and I can make you ruler over many. But if we ain't faithful over the few dollars that we got in our 401k, why would he give us a whole lot more money to be responsible for? Yeah. So we got to take care of what we got and do better with what we have, and that'll put us in a better situation and give us more room to ask more questions. You have not because you ask not, but you ain't asked because you don't trust.
And that trust factor is key, because there's a lot of mistrust in the news right now. As a result of the shutdown, there's mistrust with the government. And so in this time, it is imperative for us to put our faith in God. And when we put our faith in God, that's what reestablishes real trust.
Well, absolutely.
Trust God over trusting man.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go call a spade a spade. See, right. You know, we got to do a lot better overall, because, see, from a media perspective, the media has always painted us a certain way. And it's never usually been in a positive light consistently. So if we know that majority of the media that we take in is not positive as it pertains to African Americans, we have to ask ourselves, are we supporting the Black-owned media companies? Are we supporting the Black-owned radio stations? I know we are. We support 94.9. We on it right now. Check us out every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. You know, we're on supporting us. You know, are you supporting the Black podcasts, the ones that are owned by Black media companies? So if we're not doing our due diligence and supporting the people that can paint us the right way, and if we're so busy attacking our own, and we're so busy, you know, giving praise and credit to someone who is literally trying to hurt us and destroy us. We've seen the media. Malcolm X said this a long time ago. We get misguided because of what we see and what we digest. So we talked about it earlier. We got to do a better job of what we take in, because guess what? The media's job is to incite. They're trying to create a rise in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Because see, when you create a rise, you create reaction, and that reaction creates a stimulus. That stimulus tells you need to go buy something. Because everything we see on TV, it's all for the benefit of marketing one company or another. Right. It's to build them up in a certain light so they can sell you something and make a profit from. So we understand these media companies, they selling ads, they selling this, they selling that, because they're trying to drive revenue and drive dollars. Yeah. So we understand that they have an agenda. Well, that's okay. We understand what their agenda is. We got to do a better job of saying, look, let's counteract that agenda. Yeah. What can we do differently? Can we create a Black-owned media company? Can we support the Black-owned media companies that do exist? Can we make sure that we support the Black-owned radio stations, the Black-owned magazine companies, you know, the Black podcasts, the Black, you know, YouTube channels? Are we making sure that we focus on them? Now, Fanbase is a Black-owned social media company, right? We've essentially built and created credibility for how many billion-dollar social media companies today? We've made Clubhouse a billion-dollar company. Who made Clubhouse popping? We did. Who made social media relevant from an Instagram and a Facebook standpoint? Who was it? Us. So we're always the driver of change from a cultural standpoint, because our culture sets the tone from everybody else, because they steal from us. So if we set the tone and we are the culture, why not we putting the money that our culture generates into companies owned and represented by us, so we can get painted properly to the broader media and to the viewing public? That's what we got to do a better job of. And if we do that, then I think things will start to change, because you see all these people over the last few weeks talking about different things and saying, and one gentleman in particular, he would say, well, the Black man is not taking care of his kids. The Black man is not in the home. Well, right now, today, there are more Black fathers taking care of their kids than any other point in time in our history. Yeah. Black men are marrying women. We're at this highest percentage rate of any point in time in history. But if you look at the media, you look at what's portrayed, they'll tell you it's the opposite. But I'm here to tell you, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud.
Amen. So with that in mind, that comes with having better discernment. You know, as you just talked about, how the media paints pictures we see that as a result of this shutdown, we don't have real data that's coming out. The news channels and the various job reports and all these different things, we don't have real data. So when we don't have true data, this is where real discernment is key. So, and the only place that you can get real discernment is being plugged in to Jesus Christ. And we'll see you back after this commercial. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And this show today is talking about the advantages of adversity. So we just closed out talking about data versus discernment and how the media paints a certain picture, and the reason that we need to control our own story. And the only way that we control our own story and put out real data and real information is being plugged into God and having true discernment to be able to communicate what is actually going on. And this is why we're coming to you today. The advantage of the adversity is, in the midst of the adversity, it helps us to refocus back on our true foundation, on our true salvation. And that is God and God alone through Jesus Christ. So in the midst of whatever it is that you are going through, our listeners and those that are tuned into the show, all of us are facing the adversity of the government shutdown in various ways. But more specifically, each person has a different way that it's affecting each one of us. But no matter whether, you're a federal worker and you're being furloughed and you're missing a paycheck, and that's about 750,000 plus furloughed workers. And then, in the midst of this time with this presidential administration, they are even cutting out some of those workers, not only furloughing, but also just eliminating the job position.
Correct.
And that's about 4,200 plus permanent layoffs. And much of that money is not going to be recovered. Much of those paychecks are not going to be recovered. And then specialized expertise in different areas, where we're dealing with security, right, and with the world and taking care of things, and dealing with various persons that deal with mental health issues, and in the schools and education and disease prevention, and all of these different things are being affected in the workforce. And these are going to be challenges that we're going to continue to face. But if we lay out our plan, and our plan is centered on, directed by God, then the scripture, Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. So when our vision is written out by God, then the vision of the world that tries to defeat us and destroy us will not have any effect on us like that. Why? Because we're able to take advantage of it by getting back into the face of God to discern what it is that God desires for us to do, and to discern the plan that God has for our lives, and to allow God to direct every single step and every action that we take. This is very important for us as we move forward, because when we, dealing with public policy, we need to have a private prayer life.
Woof.
Because public policy can get us off track. And I think that's what has happened over the time. And I think that now the advantage of this adversity is to display to us how far we've gone away from God, right? How far we have disconnected ourselves from the root foundation of where we've been. A lot of times I see people, especially on social media, and even coming in the barbershop, and people say they have this saying that I'm not my ancestor, I'm not my grandparents' generation. And they usually say that trying to be derogatory, saying that I'm not going to put up with the stuff that they put up with. You know what I'm saying? And they've been saying that from a place of prosperity. They've been saying that because they're standing on the shoulders of those that have come before us, and they hadn't had to face the type of adversity that our ancestors faced. So they feel like our ancestors were passive, and our ancestors were not passive.
No.
Because they fought for everything that they got, and they fought for everything that we now have, the comforts that we have. They fought for them, and now we are in an adverse situation now, and now it's going to determine what our mettle is. Are we going to be the fighters? Are we focused on ourselves, or are we focused on the generations to come? And so that's why I'm grateful for those that came before me. I'm grateful for those that gave their lives to get our people out of slavery. I'm grateful for those that fought through the Jim Crow era. I'm grateful for those that fought during the Civil Rights era, because I realize that I'm able to do what I'm able to do because of them. And so now the onus is on us, that in the midst of this adversity, how are we going to take advantage of it? How are we going to tie in to God and have our foundation, our faith in God, so that God can direct us on the work that we need to do in the midst of this situation, right? You know, Harriet Tubman has said that she was a minister as well, and she was led strictly by God. You know, the story of her life and the direction that she took, it says that she would take the time to pray, and she would be able to discern what danger was, not because she was so smart, but because she was spiritually attuned to God, and God would warn her where to go and where not to go, and what to do and what not to do. And that's what the advantage that we need to take in the midst of the adversity that we face now is to get so in tune with God that we know what we need to do and what we don't need to do.
We know what's funny. I wondered today, as much as we talk about I'm not my ancestors, how many people they even know how to fight? Yeah, so I'm thankful I still grew up in the era of my dad that taught me how to fight.
They gonna learn today, though, in the midst of this adversity.
Because a lot of things that's going on, we getting pushed in that direction. And then, you have to ask, okay, well, do you know how to fight? Do you know what to fight for? Because most of the kids nowadays, they've never been to fight before. They don't, unfortunately, I think they should do more fighting and less shooting. That's a whole other conversation we're going to get to on definitely one of these days. We too quick to pick up, gun to retaliation versus what we would say back in the day. We're going to stand out here, we're going to throw them hands, and we're going to live to fight another day. But we have to take, some accountability, obviously, directly for the action or inaction that we've taken. And I think a lot of it, and I can blame myself for this in different ways, is not understanding or respecting the fight that they had. I think sometimes when you get, removed, and we've been blessed and privileged to not have to go through what a previous generation has gone through, it's easy to kind of sit back and say, what they did or didn't do, or what you would have done if you were in that situation. But guess what? You ain't in that situation. You ain't have dogs sicked on you. You ain't have water hoses, sprayed at you. You didn't have to deal with those things, so you can sit in your nice neighborhood from your house as having reaped the benefits of what your ancestors have went through and fought through and died for, and you can say what you would or wouldn't do, but what are you actually doing right now to make things better? And I think that's something that everybody needs to sit down and ask themselves right now in the Black community, say, what are you doing to make things better? How are you impacting our community in a positive way? What is your give back? And it's okay, because everybody's give back is not going to be the same. Everybody is skilled and gifted and talented in different areas. For some people, it may be to lift our emotions with a song. For some people, it may be with action and by organizing. For some people, it may be teaching financial literacy, so we're in a position to have money to put the resources together to be able to fight the good fight. For some of us, it may be, capturing all of this on camera and being able to digitally and video wise and radio wise tell the story of what's going on in the community, around the world. So everybody plays a part. And I think that sometimes we feel somewhat insignificant, or maybe that our part may not matter as much, but everybody matters. Everybody plays a part in the success of our community. And once you think that you don't play a part in our success, you probably become part of the destruction because you don't care enough and you don't have enough concern to help those around you. And that's where our community has fallen off. We used to be a community of togetherness. We used to be a community of each one teach one. We used to be a community of sharing. I remember, going to my grandmother's house, and she always had a stranger in the house she was taking care of. She took care of people some people take care of stray cats. Always somebody in the house that she was feeding. Always somebody in the house that was staying there for a few days because they were trying to get themselves together and needed to kind of just have a soft place to lay their head for a few nights. That was the way we took care of each other back in those days. I don't see that same care and concern because we've all become so selfish and so self-absorbed because the world has changed. We've all become, a little bit more of, let me get mine, let me take care of me, and I'm going to let somebody else worry about everybody else. Well, now, if nobody's worried about everybody else and everybody's worried about self, we end up with a lot of people that need help and no one to help them. So where do we turn? Where do those people turn that just need help? They just need a warm meal and somebody to say, hey, you know what? I still care about you. I believe in you. And that's, a lot of what we're missing. It's just that simple home cooked meal. That simple that how far does a bowl of warm soup go on a cold winter's night? Just those little things that we used to have and just from taking care of each other that doesn't exist now as much as it used to. But I think that's a lot of because we're not in the positions and we no longer feel like we have enough. Because see, grandmama and them always had enough. They had a way of making a way out of no way because they had a faith. They had a belief. And I'd be like, they had a prayer life that we don't have the same way because of what they went through, because of what they gone through, and because we haven't went through some of the same things. I don't think we have the same level of prayer life that they had. When you're going through those storms, God has a way of humbling you and knocking you to your knees when you get to the point in life where you ain't got nowhere to turn but to him. And I think a lot of times what's happened to a lot of us is that we've been so blessed and fortunate because of our ancestors and what they've done, the positions they put us in. We ain't been quite knocked to our knees in a way where we feel like we ain't got nowhere to go and we ain't got nowhere else to turn. So we turn to him, but you just keep living a little while longer. And at some point in time, something's going to happen to rock your world to make you turn and say, Lord, I humble myself before you. I need you. I need you to guide me. I need you to speak a word into my life. I need you to give me peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's one thing we know in this world. There's a lot that's going to happen. And the one thing that I promise everybody's going to come to God for at some point in time or another is just some peace. It's just a peace to get through the night because so much is going on around you. You in your own head. Things going around you that you can't control. So we just have to do a better job about, I think just being better and understanding the situation that we in, so understanding what we can't control, controlling our controllables. We can't control how we spend our money. We can't control how we invest our money. We can't control where we spend it. We can't control where we invest it. We can't control who benefits from the dollars that we spend and the dollars that we invest. So we have to be more judicious and hold ourselves more accountable in making sure that we take care of our responsibilities, of making sure that I'm planning for my retirement, making sure that I'm planning for my kids' college education, make sure that I'm planning for that rainy day that we know is going to come. We know storms are going to happen. We know they're going to come. We talked about it before, how the ant builds up a storehouse. He don't just wait until it's time to eat to start storing up his food. He's storing it up all year round, constantly storing, even on good days, bad days, constantly storing. So when the time comes that he needs it, it's already there. And guess what we even learned about that ant? He's storing up the food, even if the food ain't for him. He's storing it up for the next person. He's storing it up for the next ant. So we got to be more like the ant. We got to create a storehouse for all of us to be able to partake in. And I think once we start doing more of that And I don't want to speak as if it's not going on. We just need more of it. And I myself need to be better about imparting and leading and being the change that, we want to see. And I always have a client that, one of my good friends now, he say the same thing every time we finish conversation. He always, hey man, I'm here to be the change I want to see. So I've stolen that from him.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to be the change that I want to see in life. And I think those are some of the things that we need to start doing a better job of in our community. I think if every man and every woman, start saying, hey, I want to be the change that I want to see in my community, I think that will have the rub-off factor. I think the kids will see that. I think the kids will be impacted by that. We need to do a better job of supporting our teachers. Teachers need a lot of help right now. It ain't your teacher's job to raise your child because you're too busy not raising them at home. And I know I'm touching another button right now, but it's just something that God told me to get to people. And I'm gonna let that sizzle their spirit for a little while. But most of us come from educators. And if we look back, their previous generation cherished education.
Yeah.
And they cherished education because their parents didn't have the same opportunities to be educated. They didn't have a chance to go to college and go to school and be learned, as they would say. I ain't get a chance to be learned. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But guess what? They created a way for their kids to go to college and to go to school. And, if I look back in all of our families, all of us got a bunch of educators in our families. Most of our HBCUs, they were developing educators. We took pride in education. But guess what? We were taking pride in education, and at that time, also, we had a lot of trust in each other. So somewhere along the way, I feel like we've lost a little bit of trust, which has led to the lack of education, which has led to a lot of deterioration that we've had in our community. So if we can get some of that back and get some of that education and cherishing education and understanding that knowledge is power, and then if I know better, I can do better. Well, guess what? I think that'll help us be more trusting. That'll help us make better decisions. That'll help all of us be in a better situation.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And so with that in mind, we're trying to center the people in that, if I can say it in a different way as well, is the advantage of the adversity that we have is, number one, build our trust in God more, build our relationship in God, structure your faith. Have more faith in God than in the world and in these systems, because these systems will fail. Systems collapse, but the kingdom of God continues to stand.
Yeah.
If you read the scripture, it doesn't matter what ruler was in charge of what nation at any time over the annals of history, but there's one ruler that has always stood the test of time, and that's God. We're going through this phase of government shutdown where President Trump is the president of the United States, but there's going to come a time when he's no longer president, and we've seen that in America where we have presidents that are president for a specified amount of time, but God is still God. And so number one, that what we need to take advantage of in the midst of this adversity is to rebuild, restructure, and center our faith and our trust in God. But then also what this helps us do is to discover our own talents as well. As you talked about the community that we have and the community that we've had in the past and the community that we need now to restructure and build, to be able to sit down with each other, eat together, and to talk about the things that we need to do and to assist one another, to strengthen one another, to pray with one another, to pray for one another. These are the types of things that help our ancestors get through, is trusting in God, but then also understanding the talents of the community. And then once we do that, then what the other advantage of the adversity is, it builds a greater testimony that now we're able to go and tell the story of how we made it over, of how we made it through. And that's what the Bible does and the writers of the scriptures do. And especially David in Psalm 62, when he says in verse 11 that he's heard it, it was spoken once and twice he's heard it, that power belongs to God. And so in the midst of this show, and what we're trying to get you to understand is that, yes, there are worldly powers and they are in control and they have the government shut down. But what you need to remember is that all power belongs to God. And if you continue to trust in God, then you don't have to wait on the government shutdown so that you can recover. But when you trust in God, you can build your future now and not have to wait on anybody else. And we'll see you on the next show.